Hey guys, Dr. Sabretooth here, and today I thought I'd hop into a topic that I've been interested in for a long time: Sonic fan games. Now, unless you've been living under a rock since the mid-90s, you'd know that Sonic fan games are a very popular thing among the Sonic fan base. And yes, you heard that right. The earliest Sonic fan game was made only 2 years after Sonic was created. So on top of being very popular in the Sonic community, fan games have also been around just as long as the franchise. And so I want to basically do small reviews of a bunch of fan games. I'll basically be covering a few topics: some of the first fan games ever made, some of the most popular, and some that aren't known as well but are definitely phenomenal games. Now, there is a ton of Sonic games that I could cover, so I decided to limit it to those categories to keep it more streamlined. And who knows, if you guys like this video enough, I might revisit the topic, but just looking at random fan games. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear: I will only be looking at original from the ground up fan games, so basically anything that isn't a ROM hack, since that subgenre of fan games is an entirely different beast all of its own. And also, if I do end up not liking some of these games, at the end of the day, these are all games made by people who just wanted to make them out of the love of the series, and not trying to make a quick buck. So obviously, I'm not going to be judging these on the same level that I would be judging the official games. Also, no, I am not going to be looking at Sonic Omens. I don't want to play it, and the creator is kinda scummy, so I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, with all of that being said, let's jump into the first ever Sonic fan game. I don't even know how to pronounce this game. According to my research, also known as a glance at the games page on Sonic Retro, its English title roughly translates to Mini Sonic the Hedgehog, or Minic the Hedgehog. I'll just be calling it Mini Sonic to keep it simple. And how is the first ever Sonic the Hedgehog fan game? Well, okay, I gotta be honest, I spent almost an hour trying to figure out how to get this to run on my PC, and I just could not figure it out. So, what I'm gonna do is I'll just comment on stuff like visuals and music, while I have this footage of a walkthrough I found online. Also, be sure to check out JPin88, their channel is in the description. They're the one who captured the footage of this game. They do all sorts of videos related to Sonic, so if you like Sonic and just games in general, check them out, they're pretty cool. Gotta give a thanks for letting me borrow the footage. Now, with that being said, this fan game was made in 1993 and is really impressive both visually and audibly. The graphics, well, definitely not as good as something you'd see on the main games on the Genesis. The graphics are pretty damn good, with it looking more detailed than 8-bit Sonic 1 on the Master System. In fact, I'd go as far to say that this game visually looks better than Sonic Pocket Adventure, which released 6 years later. It even has the Genesis style of parallax scrolling, which is really impressive given the resources this was made with. However, my main problem with the graphics are mainly the sprites, because while I completely understand why they aren't nearly as detailed as the official sprites, they're just off to me. I don't know, just like the specific way Sonic and a lot of the enemies look, where there's bits of shading on them that I feel like could have been spent on pixels to give more detail to the sprite, as opposed to just shading. But I'll take what I can get, and overall, these are pretty decent looking sprites. They're just, I don't know, they're just kind of weird to look at. I don't know, I just don't like how Sonic looks straight ahead instead of at the semi-side angle that usually is depicted at in 2D settings. Other than that, the graphics are really impressive for this game, especially for the time and resources it was made. Also, the music, while apparently not original from what I can give from my research, like, it's a tune that you'll remember after a few minutes of playing. So overall, not a bad start to Sonic fan games. I'm very excited to see what comes up next. And I think a lot of you might know of this next one, since it's commonly seen as the very first Sonic fan game. Now, like I said, this game is commonly believed to be one of the first Sonic fan games ever made, but through my own research, it appears that Mini Sonic predates this game by a few years. This game is exactly 2 years younger, with it being released in 1995 by Martin Braid. This game basically is an endless runner where you run through a forest throwing apples? Why apples. What the fuck? Anyways, that's pretty much it. I mean, for the most part, until you get to the very end where it's the death egg and you fight Robo Sonic, and after you beat him, you win. That's literally it. I mean, the sprites are, well, interesting to say the least. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's pretty off model from how Sonic usually looks. And while we're at it, the art is pretty decent. Like, it's definitely amateurish, but it's pretty crude, and it kind of has a charm to it. The music also has that same so bad it's good kind of thing, with it basically being default MIDIs. Overall, this game, well, generally you could say it's a piece of shit. It's just way too fucking charming to call it bad, honestly. It's just a fun time all around. It's kind of stiff, but you know, it's fucking Sonic Boom. What else could I really say about it besides it's got its charm. Yeah, it's kind of got the face only a mother could love, if you catch my drift. Besides, I can't totally hate this, because while despite it not being the first Sonic fan game, it was definitely one of the more popular of the earliest Sonic fan games, and so it really brought the idea of Sonic fan games into popularity. But that's not the only Sonic fan game that was made in this engine, as we have another game to look at, released only 2 years later.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, that was basically my thoughts exactly. I genuinely don't know what to say about this one. Well, released in 1997 by one Magnus Anderson in the click and play engine that was also used for Sonic Boom. This game, well, that's pretty much all I can say about development-wise. There's not really much info on this game, so let's just jump into it, and good God, the only way I can describe this game is a fever dream. Because this shit is... Okay, first of all, I should mention, yes, this game was made by somebody who, while I can't find a definitive age, was very young at the time. So when it seems like I'm shitting on this game, it's more in a comedic way, because for the time of release and the resources, this is pretty impressive still, even if it is kinda bad. So to start, this game has a 3-minute fucking intro, and it seems to be tied into the universe of Sonic SatAM, which is pretty cool because today you don't really see a lot of people try to do stuff with that story, and it's kind of like a time capsule into the time when this was the only Sonic media the West had, so it's really interesting to see what people can do with it. So the plot of this game basically involves Eggman doing some plan and Tails need to collect 100 rings in different zones to beat him. And it's as simple as that, and the thing is, you just walk around levels and collect rings. That's it. There's a time limit that can stop you, but... oh boy, let's just talk about that. This fucking time limit is so strict in the first goddamn level, because you only get about 100 seconds, and every time you are hit by an enemy, it goes down by 10 seconds. And because of this game's pretty jank physics all around, you get hit a lot. It's very easy to take damage, and you end up dying very quickly on your first playthrough, and eventually you get the hang of it, but man, this game is kind of frustrating, not gonna lie. And it got really frustrating to the point where after I spent the entire time trying to beat the first level, I got to the second one, and the second one was easier than the first level, so that just seemed like backwards game design. And then I got to the first boss, and then I died, and I got booted back to the fucking title screen, and it's just, I don't know, it's just really frustrating. Similarly to Sonic Boom, though, this game does have a charming, so bad it's good art style and music, with free MIDI music and very amateurish MS Paint art, so it's got kind of like that 90s charm to it, if I can describe it as anything. Now, despite liking the amateurish art style, I do still have a bunch of problems with this game, and I just did not have a good time with it. but it's still impressive given the fact that it was made on such a small budget. Now we have one more game to look at from what I like to call the classic era, and despite its sequel being one of the most talked about Sonic fan games of all time, rarely do I ever see people talk about this game. Now why is that? Well, let's find out. I completely understand why nobody talks about this game. Oh, good God, where do I even fucking start with this? Released in 1998, Sonic Robo was developed by Jonathan Wallbank, also known as Sonicu Online. Now this game is, well, it's definitely a first video game. Now, there's not much info on this game that I could find other than the page on Sonic Retro, and even then, half of the one paragraph long sentence was talking about Sonic Robo 2, so it was just not that easy to find info about this game. Now, I'm not going to completely shit all over this game since it's obviously a first attempt at a game, but I still got some complaints that I want to get out of the way. Mainly the fact that the controls are kind of shit. And this is all because of one simple thing. The jump button is mapped to the enter button of all things. And this wouldn't be an issue if the only way to move wasn't the arrow keys, which are right below it. So only after about 3 minutes of playing, I had to constantly be rearranging my hands, and it just turned my fingers into pretzels. It was just not a good time at all to control. And on top of that, there were just tons of moments where I got stuck on walls, clipped through shit. The background and foreground were barely indistinguishable, causing me to walk into walls half of the time. And honestly, the sprites are kinda hideous, not gonna lie. They're not even like that so bad it's good kind of style like the other ones. This game was released in 1998, 5 years after Mini Sonic, which had considerably better sprites. Now, again, I do know that this was probably a first attempt at a game, and that I shouldn't hold it to that high of standards, but come on, there's just so much more visually better looking Sonic fan games around this time that also controlled way better. Tails in the Quest for 100 Rings, as stiff as it was still comfortable to control. I don't even know if there was something wrong with the settings or what was going on, but I could not find out how to change the control mapping, and it just was not fun to play at all. However, I do gotta give this game one thing that prevents it from being completely irredeemable. And that is, if it wasn't for this game, we would have never gotten Sonic Robo 2, which, not to get ahead of myself, but that game is just great. And speaking of, now here we are, the big game. One of the most popular and influential Sonic fan games ever made. This game right here is probably one of, if not the most beloved Sonic fan game in existence, and in all honesty, it definitely deserves the praise it gets. This is also a great segue game from some of the earliest Sonic fan games to the most popular Sonic fan games. Despite not coming out too long after its predecessor, this game is a phenomenal step up in quality. Even its earliest demos, which are from 1998, look insane. Even today it still looks pretty good, but the current version, oh god, this game is just beautiful looking. Not to jump straight ahead to graphics and presentation, but oh, I love the aesthetic of this game. It's a very niche art style, but I love this 3D pixel look that stuff like Doom and Wolfenstein pull off. And I wish more games would do it, honestly, because, in my opinion, this is a really appealing art style if you want to try to do retro games in the modern day. Oh yeah, speaking of 3D, this is, to my knowledge, the first 3D Sonic fan game, and it is really solid for a first 3D Sonic game. And also, funny enough, this is around the same time Sonic, the main series, would enter 3D with Sonic Adventure. So, it just really goes to show how integral fan games are to the Sonic series when they're so closely linked in releases. Now, I know I've been talking a lot of visuals about this game, but in all honesty, that is one of the main reasons I love this game. Its art style is just something that I really love. It reminds me of what could be a Sonic game for the Sega Saturn, even. And on top of the background sprites looking really good, the character sprites are also amazing looking. They have this style of flat sprites on 3D lands, which is, again, part of that niche art style that I love. But the thing that's also great about these sprites is that they're really detailed and packed with a lot of animation. Stuff like the idle animations, the character select screen, and even the title screen have such fluid and nice animation with a really nice art style that looks like it was drawn, but it's all pixels. It's just really nice looking. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this title screen later went on to inspire Sonic Mania's title screen, which gives off very similar vibes, in all honesty. This game is just so good looking that I don't think my words can do this game's graphics justice. Neither can my shitty video quality for the footage I captured. I highly recommend downloading this just for the visuals alone. However, there's one thing that stops me from calling this one of the best Sonic fan games of all time, in my personal opinion, and that is the gameplay. Okay, so don't get me wrong, the gameplay is actually pretty good. I just have a few issues that prevent me from fully enjoying it. Firstly, you move way too fucking fast. Now, I know it's a Sonic game, but I feel like the movement is way too fast to be able to do any precise platforming without sliding off or jumping over it. And the other problem with the movement is the camera moves just as fast, leading to moments where I want to turn, but I end up spinning completely around because of how sensitive the camera movement is. Now, this wouldn't be too big of an issue if you didn't have to turn the camera constantly to readjust yourself like I end up having to do every time I play this game. And I know this might just be a personal issue, but for me, I don't have a lot of desk space for my mouse, so I end up almost completely sliding the mouse off the desk half of the time. So what I have to end up doing is I have to just do tiny little jolts to the left and right, and it's honestly disorienting. Now, this is why I'm glad the game has built-in controller support, because if it wasn't for that, I probably would have dropped the game after the second zone. Even with a controller, however, it still is way too fast to actually comfortably play. Another slight issue is that despite the fact that I love the graphical style to no end in this game, the fact that you move so fast and the pixels blur constantly whenever you move, it kinda makes the game nauseating to play at some points. In fact, it's actually the issue I have with Sonic CD for the most part. And one last problem I have with the game, it's the fact that there's no homing attack. Now, I know there's this dash maneuver, but it's honestly not that good of a move in my opinion. Like, it looks like a homing attack, but it doesn't properly home in on enemies, and all it's really good for is getting up a few slightly tall ledges and gaining speed. But the problem is you move so fucking fast that why would you want to gain speed instantly? And another thing is that without a homing attack, it is pretty annoying to hit enemies, and there are often a lot of times where I'll try to instinctively jump onto enemies with that button and I'll just zip right past them. Now I know that's more of a me problem, but I feel like there just should be a homing attack, because the whole reason the homing attack was invented was because the devs of Sonic Adventure realized how annoying it is to try to directly jump on enemies in a 3D space. Other than those few issues, however, I still love this game. In fact, this is one of the first games on the list I actually played way more of than I needed to get footage for. So yeah, I highly recommend giving this game a look at. If you don't really like the main game, just look at the modding community. They add so much unique levels, characters, and even a whole mod that turns the game into a kart racer. It is insane the kind of dedication the modding community this game has. Alright, so now we've reached the point in the Sonic fan game timeline where we can move on from the earliest Sonic fan games to some of the most popular Sonic fan games, and I feel like most people should know this next one. Now this game is a classic to anyone who grew up in the early to mid 2000s. This was the type of game that during computer class, where you'd go up to some random person and be like, hey, check this game out. And then they'd be blown away because it plays almost like an official game. And then you'd have a whole crowd of people watching you or someone else play it and just being amazed at it because of how high quality it is for the time. And then you'd have some random kid at the back say some dumb shit like, this is actually official, like he knows more about Sonic than you do. And then, okay, I'm getting a little sidetracked. Created by Newgrounds user Dennis Gid, this game basically tries to be a Flash version of the Sonic Advance games. Now, obviously, because it's an early Flash game, it's not anywhere as expansive as the official GBA games, but this game is pretty good for the time. Now, only 2 zones may not sound that impressive, but when you give it a context that this is a 2004 Newgrounds Flash game, it's actually pretty impressive. On top of looking really accurate to the Sonic Advance games, it also has pretty close, but still jank at times, physics to the Advance games. And on top of looking and playing pretty closely to those games, it also has the same roster of characters. Everyone here, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Cream. For some reason, Amy is an unlockable character instead of being there from the start, but they also have the bonus of adding Shadow to the game as well, which is pretty neat, honestly. Now, this game is pretty short. It should only take you about 10 to 20 minutes to complete the entire game in just one run. However, there is one major issue, despite how impressive this game is, and that is the fact that it is unstable as hell. Or at least the version I played is unstable. I don't know about the original Newgrounds version. Now, you might be asking, why didn't I play it through there? Well, I didn't feel like installing the Newgrounds player just to play it through that, so I played it through one of the many re-uploads of the game on other Flash websites. And so, I'm not going to critique the game too hard in that aspect. However, this is the version that I played, so I'm going to criticize it for what this version is. If the official Flash version on Newgrounds doesn't have these issues, please let me know in the comments. A lot of the issues I ran into were seemingly minor, and then some of them were just flat-out game-breaking. Like, for example, there were tons of moments where you would just stop for no reason at all, even when I was holding down the arrow key, and then the half-pipes would just not work. And there was also these moments where when I would jump on enemies, even though I jumped on them in the ball state, I would still take damage. And while I was actually recording footage, this game decided to do some weird glitch that I had never really had happen before, where Sonic just started walking on his own, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get him to stop. This ended up leading to a point where I was basically soft-locked on this half-pipe, and even after I died, it still was happening, and it caused me to just not be able to finish the level. Eventually, however, I did get that fixed and I made it to the second zone, but oh boy, this was just not that good to play, honestly. For the time being, yes, it is impressive. And yes, I do appreciate the fact that this person was able to replicate Sonic Advance so accurately for 2004 with Newgrounds. But honestly, it's just really unpolished for me to really call it anything other than a neat bit of Sonic fan game history. Now, this game is one that I heard tons of good things about, but I actually have not played until this video. So, is it as good as people say it is? Yeah, it's pretty good. Released in 2012 by Lake Feppard, sorry in advance if I butchered the pronunciation, this game is actually a mid-quel between Sonic 1 and 2, and it aims to tell the story about how Sonic and Tails met before the events of Sonic 2. One of the things I noticed immediately was that this game takes heavy inspiration from Sonic CD, from the game having music from not only Sonic CD, but also the Sonic OVA, which can basically be described as Sonic CD the anime. The cutscenes of this game also feature sprite versions of the animated intro to Sonic CD. Not gonna lie, that part right there really got me amped up to play the game because, well, I love the Sonic CD intro. Probably heard tons of people describe how good it is, but it really is just such a good animation. It's got great character design, fluid movement, and just overall is just really good, and I love the opening to Sonic CD. And on top of that, the gameplay is actually really good. Now, it's been a minute since I last played the original Sonic games from the Genesis, but From what I can tell, this game is pretty close to being a one-to-one recreation of those physics, which is really impressive considering the fact that most of the games we've been looking at today have either tried something completely different or have only been able to barely come close to reaching them. But this game genuinely feels one-to-one with those games. On top of that, this is just a solid-looking game. It's got amazing-looking sprites with some really good expressions and animation to them. On top of being really well animated, they're also completely original sprites, which is just, oh my god, it just looks so good. And also, the soundtrack to this game is also just, oh, it's just great to listen to. Its music is also really good. A lot of it is very inspired by Sonic CD, which I think is fairly obvious in the type of instruments it uses. But that's honestly not a bad thing, because while it's not my favorite, the Sonic CD soundtrack is really good. It's just really boppy, if I had to describe it as anything, so I'd recommend just giving it a listen. Now, I do have one problem with this game, and that is the level design. Not that it's completely horrible or it's unplayable, it's just that, in my opinion, I just don't like the Sonic CD style of maze levels, which this game takes a lot of inspiration from. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a few stages that are just run to the goal, but a lot of them are exploration-based, and in all honesty, I guess that's just not my cup of tea, because I honestly just don't like feeling like I'm going through a maze in 2D Sonic. That's just my preference. It's okay if you totally like that, but it's just something I personally don't like. Other than that, this game is just great all around. I'd recommend giving it a download, and especially if you're a fan of Sonic CD, because if you like that game, oh boy, you are going to love this game. I'll have to check out the sequel sometime. I decided not to do that for this video just to add some more variety in games, but who knows, maybe if we do another one of these, I'll check that one out. Now, we're at that point in the Sonic fan game timeline where they started to gain that reputation, where people consider them on par or even better than the official games that Sega was putting out. And this next game is definitely no exception to that. Released in 2016 by Mr. Lang, who I actually found out through my research was the music composer of Sonic after the sequel. Now, this game is definitely a far cry from those games, because this actually came up when he had the idea 3D Sonic games had never really reached their true potential that they could have reached. And so, this demo basically aims to be an open-world Sonic game. And in all honesty, this game succeeds pretty well at its attempt. To start, I feel like Sonic controls really well in this, as in, he moves fast, but is able to do more precise platforming without slipping and sliding all over the place. And I also love the ability to do the super peel out. Sure, it's basically the spin dash, but I just like the look of it more. One more thing I like about this game is that I feel like moving around is just fun. There's tons of moves that you can do to try to gain speed, and the map itself, while a bit barren at points, is just fun as hell to explore. There's tons of small areas that feature really fun gimmicks, like this area that has all the half pipes and loops, or the caves that if you go down the right path, you can find a mini version of Labyrinth Zone. And on top of it being really fun to play, it's also aesthetically pleasing to look at. If you follow my Twitter account, you'd know I sometimes will talk about how much I love the Sega Saturn models of Sonic, and I don't know why, but I just love the low poly look for them. And this game honestly looks like a modern day Sega Saturn game, and I just love looking at it. Also, random tangent, but for some reason the title screen gives me the vibe of a 90s PC game. Like, I can't name any specific game, but it just looks like something you'd see packaged with Windows XP. I think besides the gameplay, the thing I personally love about the whole thing is the 90s charm it oozes. Despite growing up in the 2000s, this game gives me nostalgia, despite it coming out in 2016, while I didn't end up playing it until 2019. Something about it just gets me nostalgic for the Sega Saturn era of Sonic. Now, despite how much I've been praising this game, it does still have a few issues. And by a few, I mostly mean just one. And that is the fact that after you've played it for about an hour or two, it gets kind of boring to explore the map when you've basically found every secret on it. And because there's no real goal to it, it's just kind of boring to play after a while. Maybe if there was like a goal to it besides exploring. I could probably get more time out of this, but besides that, I will cut it some slack because it is a demo. However, sadly, this project was cancelled, so this demo is basically all we have of it. As a proof of concept, it's really nice, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Sega got inspired by it to make Sonic Frontiers. You know, Sega really likes pandering to the fans. Maybe a little too much if you ask me. Even so, if it's anything like this game, it actually makes me really optimistic for Sonic Frontiers. That last bit is going to be really poorly aged and depressing if the game ends up being completely dogshit. Anyways, this game, while barren in a lot of places and gets old really quick, it's fun. I really highly recommend downloading it just to give it a try, honestly. And even so, just for the visuals alone, because, good god, I don't know why, I just love the look of low poly games. Now, I want to look at the last category we have for today, and that is the list of Sonic fan games that I feel like don't get enough attention and could definitely use it more. First up on the list is... So this game right here is one of the only games we're looking at today that is specifically made for Sage, which, if you don't know by now, is the Sonic Amateur Games Expo, which... it's pretty self-explanatory. It's an online event where a bunch of fan game creators get to show off their hard work and compete it against other fan game developers. Also, sometimes there isn't Sonic fan games here, but honestly, that's pretty cool how they've decided to expand out to other franchises. But one of the main things people know Sage for is that they usually pick up the more high-quality fan games, and their website always provides links to where you can download the games. So if you want to just have a fun afternoon of downloading random Sonic fan games, I highly recommend going to the Sage website. But yeah, needless to say, Sage is a really important bit of the Sonic fan game community, because it's not only a fun competition, but also a great way for the devs to show off the games they've been working on to lots of people. The reason I'm going all into detail about Sage is, well, it's simple. I feel like it's just really important when talking about how far Sonic fan games have come in almost the past 29 years. Now, with all of that being said, Sonic Grand Tour, or Sonic GT as it's more well known, was developed by a small team led by Gabriel Gonzalez, and this game basically aims to be a 3D Sonic game that basically makes speed take precedent over everything else. And despite this game feeling a lot like a boost style game, there is no boost button to speak of. The way you gain speed is by pulling off combos of homing attacks, spin dashes, and rolls to gain top speed. If I could compare it to anything, it feels like a more refined version of Sonic Utopia's controls and physics. It even has the low roll thing, where if you spam it while running, you gain speed. Or at least I think that's how it works. I don't know, maybe it doesn't do anything. Some other additions added to this game is rail grinding, the light speed dash, and the bouncing maneuver. And honestly, these moves are fun as hell to pull off in quick succession, from transitioning from a rail grind to a light speed dash, and then to a bounce, and then to a roll, and then running, and then it's just smooth, if I can describe it as anything. On top of having really great controls, there's also great level design with tons of big open areas to just fuck around in and explore to try to gain speed, and also the classic half pipes and ramps that are just fun to zip up and down. There's even some special maneuvers you can do like wall running, which I think is really neat. On top of having great level design and great gameplay, it also has some really good theming to the levels. Now, most Sonic fan games typically go for Green Hill or just a basic test level for their stages, but this game decides to use a nice variety of stages in my opinion. The opening stage is Seaside Hill, or at least a stage that's reminiscent of Seaside Hill with the theming. Also got Hilltop Zone, which is one of my personal favorite classic Sonic stages, and an original stage, which is Sunset Boulevard, which, in all intents and purposes, it's basically just Speed Highway, but in the sunset instead of nighttime, and Hidden Base. Now, what I like about these stages is that they use the themes of the levels, but not the actual designs, which I feel like they could have very easily done. Maybe not with Hilltop Zone, since that was originally a 2D Sonic stage, but all the other ones that are based off of 3D Sonic games, they could have just ported those stages in and called it a day, but no, these levels are created from the ground up to fit the control style, and it's just great all around. And honestly, it helps it stand out a lot more in the wide array of fan games. Now, another thing this game is known for, besides its great level design and gameplay, is the fact that it's one of the few Sonic fan games to have a fully completed story, and on top of that, it has voice acting and cutscenes. Now, that's not to say that the story is good, per se, but I'll get to that when we talk about the negatives that this game has. But the fact that it has a story is really cool, because most Sonic fan games are basically demos. But the fact that this one is complete makes it stand out even more, and it also gives it a lot more longevity, because sure, if you know what you're doing, this game should only take you about 30 minutes tops, but on your first playthrough, it could take you up to an hour or two to actually beat it, which it did for my first time playing it, which that might not be long, but hey, it's still longer than Sonic Forces, am I right? Now, I alluded to it before, but I think we should talk about the downsides of this game, because while I love it to death, its downsides are really bad in my opinion. A lot of its downsides really come to the story in my opinion, because it just feels mismanaged in my opinion, and also misdirected. Like, for example, it has a lot of things that would add to Sonic Adventure style of storytelling, such as the inclusion of city locations, hidden base from SA2, and the whole text styling of transitions, and also Shadow being in the game. It's clear that this is trying to be a Sonic Adventure style game. However, in my opinion, this just clashes horribly when it's given the stakes of a classic Sonic game, but it has the writing that wouldn't feel too out of place in something like Colors or Lost World. Specific moments I think of are anytime they try to tell any sort of joke, and just overall the characterization in my opinion feels like something from those era of games. As in, almost everyone feels out of character here. Now, this is no offense to the voice actors, because I think they did a pretty good job, honestly. But even so, some of these lines really do kind of feel like they were the first take, if you get my drift. Sometimes the performances are really good and they come off really smooth, and then other times it's painfully obvious that the lines are clearly just being read off the script word for word without any sort of change in dialect. And it doesn't really feel like acting, it just feels like, again, they're just reading the words off the script. The specific voices, however, are actually pretty spot on. Tails is pretty spot on, and Eggman sounds like a great balance between Mike Pollock and Dean Bristow, and Sonic sounds pretty close to Ryan Drummond, honestly. However, everyone else's voice just is off. Mighty and Shadow sound like Sonic, but either lower pitched or more gravelly in their voice, and Ray sounds almost exactly like Tails. I won't rant too much on this, since I imagine that since this is an independent fan game, they likely couldn't get tons of voice actors for each character, and so a lot of them are just the same few dozen voice actors. Which in that case, it's pretty cool, but it still distracts me a little. And one last thing that may seem a little dumb to complain about, but I seriously think Sonic is out of character in this game. There's just tons of little things where he's just off in terms of writing. Especially in this moment, where he not only acts like he completely hates Shadow, despite not really having a reason to, and he even hints at the idea that he liked him better when he was dead, and when Tails calls him out on it, he simply responds,
"Oh, I'm not joking."
What the fuck is that all about? And the most frustrating thing is that nothing like this moment specifically happens again, and even more annoying is that it's never brought up again. Like, I'm not asking for super one-to-one completely accurate story that has everyone completely in character, but if Sega can't even do this right half the time, you may be wondering, why do I expect a fan game to do it right? Well, here's the thing. Sonic fans know how to write Sonic better than Sega does 90% of the time. I know that's a bold thing to say, but honestly, look at some of the stuff Sonic fans have actually written. There have been some phenomenal pieces of fan writing that people have done for Sonic, and it's just kind of sad to see that a fan game, one of the few that tries to do a story, just doesn't get the characters right, in my opinion. Now, you may be wondering why I care so much about this. Well, it's simple. I personally like Sonic for the characters, and specifically the characterizations and how they interact with one another. And just to see it done so poorly, in my opinion, is kinda sad. Now, again, I should state, This is absolutely no offense to the writers, voice actors, or anything like that of this game, because for what it's worth, they did a really good job doing a story at least, and they were at least ambitious enough to attempt one in a Sonic fan game, which I can commemorate them for. But, oh boy, I seriously hope they will try again, honestly, because I see potential for a good story here, and if they just try again, I feel like we could get an actually really good Sonic fan game story. Now, some of you may disagree and think this story is good, and that's good on you. It's just that me personally, I just didn't like it that much. But I could still appreciate the ambition of doing a story for a Sonic fan game. But overall, this game is still really good, because even if the story is kinda bad, its gameplay heavily makes up for it in my opinion. And in all honesty, when it comes to games, the gameplay should always come first. And obviously, this game delivers on that. So that is why, even though I don't really like the story, I would still highly recommend this game for the gameplay alone. And who knows, if you decide to download this game, maybe there's something in the story that you'll see that I just couldn't. Now, next up on the list we have... That's weird. I don't remember that game being there. Hold on, what even is this? Alright, this is fucking weird because I don't remember installing this one. Ooh, I think it mysteriously appeared on my PC. It's just called Sonic. Well, let's boot it up, shall we? Okay, so it's just the original Sonic 1, and... Oh no! An MS Paint edit! Alright, if you couldn't tell by now, this bit is fucking stupid, first of all. But also, this is Sonic.exe, which is based off a shitty fucking creepypasta by a shitty fucking person who I would not acknowledge because I did some shitty fucking things. Hold up, I just realized something last minute, so I'm just adding this in. I did not specify the difference that the creator of the creepypasta and the creator of the fan game are two different people. To my knowledge, the creator of this fan game has not done anything terrible, but fuck the creator of the creepypasta and fuck their stupid fucking story. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled video. Anyways, this is a game that basically tries to recreate the events of the spooky tales of MS Paint edit Sonic that isn't scary in the slightest. And honestly, this game does it really fucking well. Because it's fucking stupid. It's a comedy. I was laughing from throughout because of how shitty it was. Not the actual game itself, which, yes, it is arguably shitty, with it having very basic physics, reused sound effects from stuff from Earthbound, Final Fantasy. It's just a bunch of reused assets, and overall, it's just not a scary game, but I will give it this. They did the best they could with the original source material, which is a pile of shit. So, they're kind of basically trying to make a playable pile of shit, and in that aspect, they succeeded pretty well, in all honesty. Now, this game has received many updates, including ones that give it a full story, proper gameplay, full cutscenes with dialogue, and even voice acting. And they actually give a conclusion to the story that isn't just, everyone dies, now Sonic.exe is coming to kill you next. And it's actually really interesting, because it's just a nice little game, but I didn't play that version because I wanted to play the authentic 2014 shitty version, full of all of its reused assets and shitty controls. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this wasn't actually on the list. This is just a last minute decision where I thought, wouldn't it be fucking funny if I reviewed Sonic.exe but did a stupid bit where I pretend that it suddenly appeared on my PC, and then halfway through recording the dialogue for it, I realized, wow, this bit is fucking stupid, I should cut it. And then I thought, no, I'm not gonna cut it, fuck that. Anyways, check out this game if you want to have a good time, laughing at how poorly it is at trying to be scary. But if you want a decently fun time, I'd say check out the modern recreations of it. Now with that stupid little bit out of the way, let's move on to the actual next game on the list. Now this game right here is something I only discovered a few months ago, and when I was getting ready to make this video, I was initially worried since I saw that there was a Patreon link on the website. Now, this got me worried mostly because I knew I wouldn't be looking at Sonic Omens for this reason, but after looking through it and reading that the Patreon was unrelated to Sonic Smackdown, it was totally fine to look at by my own arbitrary rule. Now, with that being said, Sonic Smackdown was released in 2021 by the indie game dev team ArcForged. And this game basically aims to be a fully fledged Sonic the Hedgehog fighting game. And let me just start this off, I suck at fighting games. So don't expect any in-depth breakdowns to if this game is a good fighting game in terms of in-depth mechanics and everything like that, because in all honesty, I just suck too much at fighting games, and I really don't have the patience or time to really learn how to play them. But as a casual to fighting games who basically mashes the buttons, this game is a blast, in all honesty. Firstly, I love the visual style of cel-shading. It's something I actually wish the main series would do more for a game. But also, if I can compare it to anything, this game looks and feels very similar to Marvel vs. Capcom, which is basically the way most people use to convince people to play this game. And honestly, it's not that unfair of a comparison. I mean, they both got combos of flashy moves with a cel-shaded art style based off a popular IP. And from what little fighting game knowledge I have, they control pretty similarly. This is not a bad thing at all, I should mention, because, again, I have a blast with fighting games, even if I suck at them. And this game is definitely no exception to that, especially if you're playing with friends. Speaking of, this game actually features local multiplayer. It's actually really simple too. All you gotta do is hook up 2 controllers of your choosing, and it's just like that. It works. There's no extra installing, no hardware setups. You just hook up the controller to your PC and you're good to go. It's right there. It's really nice, honestly, too. Like, I noticed no input lag on the testing that I have done with this when I do play it multiplayer. Other than that, yeah, it's just a fun-as-hell fighting game featuring Sonic & Co. Also Balan from Balan Wonderworld. Also, Adalia Graciola, hope I'm pronouncing that right, who, through my research, is actually an OC made by the devs, so that's pretty cool that they could do that. Now, there really isn't much I can say about this, other than I think the difficulty settings are a bit too extreme. In easy mode, the enemy is so easy to beat, even my dumbass can do it. But on medium and above, good god, the AI kicks my ass in this game. Maybe I just need to get better at the game, but it just really feels unbalanced how you can miss one button input and then suddenly you're getting comboed up completely and getting half of your health brought down in the span of 10 seconds. But besides that, yeah, if you just want a Street Fighter style fighting game but with Sonic and just a really good art style, check this game out. It's really good. Alright, so now we only have 2 more games left to look at, so we're at the final stretch of this marathon. Let's jump into it with these last 2. Now, Sonic Freedom is a game that not many people, to my knowledge anyways, know about, and honestly, I wish more people knew about this. This game was created by one Triple Jazz and was released in 2020, or at least the build I found was. The hardest part about writing this script, honestly, for this section was I genuinely could not find a lot of info on this game. When I would try to look it up, I typically only find results to the game Freedom Planet. But anyways, with that being said, this game is a 2D Sonic game that is hand-drawn in the art style of the Sonic CD opening, and oh boy, I already ranted about how much I like that opening, but oh geez, this game, it's just so damn pretty looking. I love looking at it, honestly. Like, you could take a screen cap from this at any moment, and it would literally just look like a piece of art, honestly. And on top of that, it's got some pretty good controls as well. On top of the typical classic Sonic moves like the spin dash, the roll, and regular jumps and runs, you also have the super peel out. There's also a new move, the bullet dash, which is for lack of a better term, basically an air dash. And this move is honestly fun as hell to pull off, especially in combos with enemies. You can get some pretty good height with it, honestly. And it makes platforming really interesting compared to other 2D fan games. Now, while I love the visuals and I love the concept, the level design is not that good, to be honest, but I don't want to harp on it too much because, according to the description on the website, the creator is already aware that the level design isn't that good, so it's likely that in a future update that this game may get, it will be fixed. Sadly, however, one other thing that I learned from reading the website description is that the final version of this game may be radically different from the original, but honestly, I think that's for the better. If we get more open-ended levels and less box-like mazes, I think that would be really cool, and even then, just the fact that it has this beautiful hand-drawn style is just drawing me in. So yeah, I highly recommend this, and who knows, maybe some people might like the fact that it's just basically a playground in 2D. And now, we come to the final game. And the game, of course, we're talking about is... Seriously, I know 06 isn't that good, but come on, it's not that bad. Oh, hold on. Oh, I put the wrong game here. Give me a second. Project 06. Now this game, I've heard of things about. This game is basically an attempt to remake Sonic 06 from the ground up in the Unity engine by Chaos X, and holy fucking shit. This is not only one of the best Sonic fan games I've ever played, but one of my favorite Sonic games ever. I'm not even joking. This game basically takes everything about the original 06, which, while I see the game as a guilty pleasure and fun at times, and I think it gets way too much hate, it takes the original 06 and completely irons it out. Now, I know what you might be thinking, it's still Sonic 06, how much improvement could be made from it? Let's just compare Wave Ocean from each game, and you'll see for yourself. Yeah, pretty obvious. But allow me to go into more specifics about what got changed from the original, because there is a lot here that changed. So, without further ado, let's just jump into it. Every character's speed has been increased. For Sonic and Shadow, it's not really that noticeable, but with Silver, it's really easy to tell how much the speed was changed. Sonic and Shadow's homing attack are much quicker. They also have better lock-on compared to the original. They're also much quicker, especially in Shadow's case, where when you use his ability, he just zips around the screen at the tap of a button, and it's insane. In about 2 seconds, you can wipe out an entire screen's worth of enemies, which is something you could never do in the original because of how slow the attacking was. Some other random quality of life improvements include the jump being higher, which really helps at some of those annoying platforming moments, which are a whole lot easier to do now. As Sonic, when you don't have the gems, the bar no longer takes up an entire chunk of the screen, which is really nice because that low bar was kind of annoying in the original. Lightspeed dash is now mapped to the Y button instead of the X button, meaning you no longer have to worry about moments where you go to do a lightspeed dash and instead you press the bounce button instead because you were just a little bit too far away from the rings, so instead of zipping across the rings, you fall into the pit below. Thanks to it being on a different button, that's now a thing of the past. Shadow's vehicles and Sonic snowboards just have better controls, in all honesty. It's hard to describe, I know, but just play it for yourself and you'll know how much easier it is compared to the original. And one last minor change, Sonic and Shadow can now spam the spin dash like in SA1, which is just nice in my opinion. Now Silver is by far the most interesting character in this build, mostly because he was definitely the character who needed the most improvement, and needless to say, he definitely got it. I know I mentioned it already, but words cannot describe how much better Silver's increase in speed is in this. Also, just little stuff like his top speed animation just looking nicer, of him floating instead of running. On top of that, Silver can now carry objects while floating. And this feature is something that I always wished you could do in the original, and every time I find myself playing the original, I'm always thrown off that I can't do this. On top of that, Silver now has a projectile attack that makes dealing with enemies a whole lot better when you don't have objects to grab. So overall, Silver, along with every other character in the game, is just more fun to play as. And that's not even mentioning even more smaller details that really bring the whole package together. Such as the updated menu screen that is just all around more optimized and shows a bit of a transparent version of the title screen, which may seem pointless, but it just adds to how much work went into fixing 06. Some other stuff that I love is that the character screens play short animations along with voice lines.
Let's get going!
It really gives me the vibe of the SA1 select screen. And speaking of voice line, this game throws in some unused voice lines into the levels, which some people complained about in early 3D Sonic games, but in my opinion, it just adds to the world building and genuinely makes it more enjoyable to know that your character isn't just some blank slate who never talks. And stuff like Sonic's random quips about the level and whatever is happening in it, it really adds to what me and many others love about this character. And that is the fact that he actually has a personality and is able to add more lighthearted moments to an otherwise serious story like Sonic 06. Which is something I feel like the original was seriously lacking, and these tiny voice lines just make the characters more personality filled. And it just adds to the immersion, you know? Another thing that just adds to the immersion is tons of little things, such as the part in Teo's section where you can actually see the egg carrier fly by, or tons of these moments where they have characters interacting at the beginning of the level if multiple characters go through that level at the same time, such as Crisis City with Shadow and Kingdom Valley with Silver. Shit like that just adds to the immersion, and I feel like most official Sonic games don't even do this. And I really wish they did, because in all honesty, these moments are just really charming to watch unfold on screen, and just add to the game. But let's address the elephant in the room, with the biggest changes to the game, the graphics and overall performance. Holy shit, the team behind this did a phenomenal job fixing up 06. Now, my current PC can't handle the game at the highest graphics, but even still, the game looks phenomenal with the slightly lower graphics settings I had to go with to be able to capture decent looking footage. And they still look miles better than the original. The load times are only about 3 to 5 seconds long compared to the possible minutes the original could take. There's tons of little graphical details like water droplets and dust particles on the screen depending on the environment. And just overall, the entire facelift the lighting engine got is just beautiful. Honestly, my footage can't do it justice. Either look up a video of it at the highest resolution, or go download it yourself if your PC could possibly handle it, because it is just stunning looking. But there's still one other thing about this game. The level design. It's still the same from the original. So, this means, at its core, Sonic 06 isn't terrible, and if it wasn't rushed and the team hadn't split during development, 06 could have turned out just as great as this game. And maybe if 06 was a good game, Sonic wouldn't be the laughingstock he is seen as by most people. Because Sonic 06, no matter how good it could have been, no matter how much ambition was put into it, and no matter what good elements came from it, it released the way it did, and forever ruined Sonic's reputation. And now, Sonic can never have any good moments without some random douchebag bringing up 06. And then, everybody just laughs and instantly disregards any ounce of good that comes from the Sonic series. And in all honesty, that genuinely sucks. I know this video is getting a bit off topic, so I'll just leave it to this. Please play this game. It's really fun, it's got amazing graphics, and it's just overall an amazing game. It's still not completely done yet, which is just amazing because it's still a demo, yet it's so great. And if the day ever comes where this game gets finished, with every level, every boss, all the hub worlds and cutscenes, it could possibly change the image of Sonic 06 and have it go down as one of the most beloved Sonic games, rather than the thing that could have killed the entire franchise. Oh, jeez, what a trip. We looked at some pretty good fan games, some phenomenal fan games, and some not so good fan games. But I hope this little deep dive into the vast world of Sonic fan games gave you a slight understanding just how huge the community of the Sonic fanbase is when it comes to fan games. And honestly, it was really fun. Even with the stuff that I didn't completely like, I still had fun with it. And all I gotta say is, I'm glad that we live in this era where not only these games are possible to be a thing, but also an era where people's hard work isn't immediately shut down to some stupid bullshit copyright rule. And all of these fan games, no matter how shitty they are amazing, not just as games, but just the fact that they've been able to form this community. And also, many of the game devs here, these were their first foray into game developing, and some of them could and have moved on to bigger projects. And it's all thanks to their experience on working on Sonic fan games. I don't mean to be the millionth person to bring this up, but look at shit like Sonic Mania. That game was made by passionate fans who started off making Sonic fan games and ROM hacks, and now they've made one of the most well-received Sonic games in history. So what I'm saying is, these fan games are just amazing to see, and if they continue to grow at the rate they've been growing for the past 29 years, I'm really excited to see what the future holds for the Sonic fan game community. And with all that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Links to all the downloads to all these games I talked about today will be in the description, along with a few other links to YouTube channels who I either mentioned or borrowed footage from. I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, and see ya.